Triggering change, one heartbeat at a time. Battle for freedom. Welcome, everyone. My name is Watson Purney. I'm your host from Battle for Freedom on Mojo 5 Radio. Glad that you can join me today. You probably just finished listening to Rocky Stucci from the Situation Room. That's early in the morning, or you could probably just finish listening to Right Now with Jim Stawes. It's in the afternoon. But my show is Battle for Freedom. My website's battle4freedom.com. I want you to go there, click every link that's available to you there. And I also want you to do me a favor and go to mojo50.com. This is the free speech network, and there's a wide variety of hosts that I want you to look into because you'll appreciate the content that you get from Mojo 5 Radio. Speaking of Mojo 5 Radio, I also want to give you some of the sponsors that we have. And being that we're starting your day off the right way, let's start it off with some American Pride Roasters coffee and do this right. Did you hear that sound? That was the factory of American Pride Roasters closing from August 24th to September 14th. Don't freak out. APR Coffee isn't going anywhere. They're doing their annual factory shutdown to reorganize, restock, and clean. You can still order from them, but your favorite coffee won't ship until September 16th, around that time. During the shutdown, they are offering the Brad's Brown Bag Blend. It's a combination of the best brown beans from Africa, Eurasia, and the Americas. Brad's Brown Bag is an unforgettably tasty blend. In order to get this new blend, just go to mojo50.com and click the donate button at the top. Donate at least $25 per bag. That's a nice round number. And you will also get a free 8-ounce bag of coffee for every additional 2 pounds you order at AmericanPrideRoasters.com during their factory shutdown. Please take advantage of this limited time offer while you can. AmericanPrideRoasters.com. Yes, and not only American Pride Roasters, because what I'm going to get into today for you, today I'm going to talk to you about the Ante-Cognitive Eisegetical Syndrome, ACEs, making it short, ACEs. This is basically the subconscious rejection of truth because of ethnic and socioeconomic biases. This is very key as we get this. I'm going to hit you with a cerebral fashion because of the fact that I like us thinking. I like us processing the information and understanding it. And the reason why I talk about this is because of the fact that you ever have those conversations with people that no matter how much factual information you provide, they just don't get it? Do you get frustrated when those times where you feel like I'm presenting you all the data, I'm presenting you all the facts? I mean, I have video footage, I have so much it promotes and brings you to the logical conclusion of what I'm sharing with you, but it still doesn't get through? Well, I'm letting you know that these individuals, they're suffering with Ante-Cognitive Eisegetical Syndrome. Big words. And one thing I want you to understand, what I'm talking to you about has nothing to do with cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is this. It's basically the psychological conflict resulting from incongruous beliefs and attitudes held simultaneously. Having contrary opinions at the same time. But what I'm telling you about with ACEs, what I'm telling you about with Ante-Cognitive Eisegetical Syndrome, is completely different. It is helping you understand that there's a mentality, there's a problem behind why people don't get it. And I'm going to talk about that. And before I get into this, let's get a little bit into more of our sponsors, because again, this is getting deep, and this is hopefully going to bring some healing. And speaking of healing, we have also another sponsor here I want you to take a listen to. Does it seem like your mind often shuts down before it even starts? Sounds like you need to detox to improve your health in body, mind, and spirit. I'd like to tell you about New Life Holistic. It is an amazing therapy process that uses neurofeedback and biofeedback for many issues that ails everyone. New Life's approach to health, balance, energy, and vitality is what sets it apart from anything you have ever experienced before. Call 1-833-4-BIO-LIFE and tell them Watson from Battle for Freedom sent you. One more thing. Give them the code MOJO50 and save $50 off of your first session. The consult is free. New Life Holistic. Call them today. So call them today, because the fact that when you're done with this broadcast, you will really need some help in trying to wrap your mind around what I was trying to say to you. So let's get into some of the things. I wanted to talk about this yesterday, and I was kind of holding off because you want to talk about people having one mentality or one, I mean, seeing the nation scattered on different opinions on something. And it's the issue of the masks. And here it is that we're now finding out that the CDC says 94% of all Americans who have died from COVID-19 had at least one other underlying disease. More than 180,000 Americans have died of coronavirus as of Monday. The CDC's latest fatality data shows that COVID-19 was listed as the sole cause of death for just 6% of those killed by the virus. 94% of those fatalities were of people who also suffered at least one chronic health condition, such as high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, and heart disease. They said that on average, people who died of coronavirus had 2.6 additional underlying health concerns. Now, this is very big because of the fact that America has been completely scattered. When you look and you consider the level of malevolence that has been in our speech. Oh, you don't love people if you don't want to wear a mask. Oh, you're foolish if you don't. The science proves the fact that the masks are protecting against COVID-19. You're just a monster and you're ignorant. You're a Neanderthal. I mean, the level, where we have memes. We have memes of people wearing masks and how it's going to stop things. And we now come to find out that it's only 6% of the people who were exposed to it solely died from that. And 6% is still a high number. What did that run out to be? About 9,000 people, 9,200 people who died from this? But for some strange reason, we were made certain that COVID was killing everybody. They were already pre-existing conditions. You know that term that you guys like with wanting to make certain that we have health care for everybody? Well, pre-existing conditions long before COVID showed up, and COVID only exacerbated the pain and the disruption to the person's system. It was already killing them. And now we find out that your numbers were booked. They were caked. They were cooked. The books were cooked. And you have lied and deceived people. And even now, what do you have to say now? You're probably, we still say masks and my people who work here, the doctors. Now, mind you, we've had tons and tons of doctors tell you how we can fix this. Dr. Stella and a whole bunch of Dr. Rashad, who sit there and they tell you exactly what you do to overcome this COVID-19 pandemic. And you don't want to listen to them. You don't want to hear what these doctors have been saying, and that the doctors are already saying, long before the CDC was saying, people were dying of pre-existing conditions. And now there are people out there right now who have been taking medicines that could be used to help COVID-19, and now they're no longer available because of the fact that the media and the experts decided that they wanted to put a ban on a medicine that has been working for more than 5 decades because of propaganda, because of basically shutting the narrative of the president being right down. We'd rather sacrifice American lives to destroy this president rather than help people. You want to talk about Ante-Cognitive Eisegetical syndrome. Well, basically, we've been calling it TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, but people have been dying because of because people don't want to accept the truth, because people don't want to actually embrace the idea that hydroxychloroquine and all these other different things that can help American citizens needs to be made available to them, and not paying thousands and thousands of dollars for it. It's about control. It's about power. And now we're finding out that of all those thousands, hundreds of thousands of people dying, I mean, I've lost relationships with people because of the fact that they're so adamant about wearing masks. They're so adamant about COVID-19 being this killer. Let's move on to something else. Here's one I thought was really interesting. And this is a lot of people who are getting angry with the president because of the fact that he wants to speak up about defending Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse, check this out. This is from the president. Well, again, audio issues where he turns around and he basically says that they would have killed him. He probably would have been killed. Donald Trump accuses defends the accused double murder, Kyle Rittenhouse, saying the 17-year-old was violently attacked before he opened fire in Kenosha, and refuses to condemn vigilantes on the eve of visiting the violence-scarred city. And this is the one that really gets me in terms of y'all want the president of the United States of America to condemn vigilantes, but y'all have not been condemning the vigilantes who have been basically destroying our cities. Vigilantes. So how do we describe vigilante? Vigilante are the people who decide that they want to take hands into their own, they want to take matters into their own hands because they don't believe that law enforcement is moving in a timely manner. They don't believe the justice system is moving in a timely manner. So they decide to take matters into their own hands. So that literally is the definition of what the protests, the rioting, and the looting has been. Because of the fact that people want to turn around and they want to speak out against systemic racism. They want to speak out against the whole idea that black people being hunted and killed by police. And so what they do is they march streets. They go to people's homes. You want to talk about vigilantism? When you go to St. Louis and you go to St. Louis and you deal with the McCloskeys, when you had a bunch of bums, hoodlums, losers, who decided that they wanted to break down a gate to a private facility, not private facility, private grounds, and to get to the mayor's house, which they could have gone a completely another different way to get to the mayor's house, who they wanted to confront. But they wanted to go into they broke down a fence. What is that? If that's not vigilantism? Now, mind you, I have an issue with the way that Mrs. McCloskey, her gun stance and everything like that was completely horrible, but that's not what we're focusing on here. We want to talk about the vigilantism because they never should have had to confront people with a firearm if the people were not illegally on their property, in their community, which they had no business being in there. There was no invite. There was no invite for them being there. But what happens is everybody's focusing on the McCloskeys. They're threatening people with guns. But no one wants to talk about the mentality of what put them in the position to be there in the first place. Kind of almost like what puts all these police shootings in the position to be there in the first place. But I'll get there in a second. I don't want to listen. You don't want to pay attention. You don't care. You just basically want to hit a lot of rhetoric, ignorant rhetoric that has nothing to do with reality and everything to do with your emotions. But the president speaks up and he defends it. Joe Biden now is speaking out again, quote unquote, speaking out. You're 90 days in. 90 days into the rioting and the destructions, and you know you've had Kamala Harris basically promoting it. You've pretty much and who was I'm gonna get him because of the fact that you also had a video footage of showing a lot of the things that were being said by Democrats to spur on the violent behavior. It was Maxine Waters who said, find someone in the Trump cabinet to turn around and harass them, make them not feel comfortable. You had Ted Cruz. You had so many of these other individuals who were bothered, who were attacked, and no public condemnation from the left, no public condemnation from the media. Because if you were conservative, you weren't going to be at peace. Rand Paul attacked many times. Scalise shot, almost killed. You sit here and you continue to just, they're enabling the violence, but the president has a moral obligation to speak out against the violence. He has a moral obligation to speak out against white supremacy. But the same media who demands that are completely, Chris Cuomo was sitting there giving a hearty approval to what Antifa and Black Lives Matter was doing, the destruction that they were doing, the rioting and the violence that they were doing. But if it's a white supremacist, if it's a KKK member, if it's a neo-Nazi, oh no, they can't do that. That's not Trump derangement syndrome. That's wow. I was going to say something and it cost me a whole lot of money. Let's get into one of the other characters on this playground of the reality of ignorance. Let's go into Bianca Taylor. Everybody wants to sit here and put out her as this angel. Bianca Taylor's family attorney says that her convicted drug trafficking ex-boyfriend was offered a plea deal to name the slain EMT as a co-defendant in his drug operation months after she was killed. Now, mind you, this is the thing. Now, the timing, optics, everything like that, it's horrible, okay? The optics are horrible because it may seem like, okay, well, we're trying to really make her look bad. But guess what? When you start looking, go look at the Tatum report and you look at the information, you look at the call logs, you look at everything that was going on. She was under observation. She was driving vehicles used for selling and basically distributing drugs. She was a drug dealer. She was in a relationship with 2 drug dealers. And you sit here and let's put out this sweet picture of her, and she's got the flowers and she's the EMT. Now mind you, most of you sit here and you're so angry because what are you protesting? You're protesting corrupt cops. You're protesting the people in power who get away with murder, and there's no accountability here. You don't want corrupt cops on the street. You want to defund the police. Let's start defunding all first responders who wants to be illicit in their behavior and illegal in their behavior, right? What's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you're going to be angry about dirty cops, you also got to be angry about dirty first responders. And how can you call her a first responder if she's sitting there and she's an EMT? Where did she get most of these drugs? Huh? Is it possible that in her job she was able to secure a lot of these drugs? But again, everybody wants to look at the sweet. She never should have lost her life. If her boyfriend never fired at the police, she'd still be alive. I don't believe in no-knock warrants. Rand Paul doesn't believe in no-knock warrants. Speak to many libertarians and to many conservatives. They don't believe in no-knock warrants. But they chose in their lifestyle to carry on in a behavior that they did not respect the law. They did not respect authority. So they fired. Some people were saying she was sleeping. She was in the hallway when she got shot. Look at the Tatum logs. Look at the Tatum report. You listen to the call logs of when they were calling the jailhouse. They were under surveillance. They knew it was going on. The guy confessed to shooting at the police first. He confessed. They knocked on the door. It wasn't a no-knock thing. They didn't bust in the door. They banged on the door, and what happened was he chose to start there and start firing and shooting. She died. She died in the mess that she made for herself. This doesn't sound good to hear, does it? But you don't want to accept the fact that she wasn't the sweet angel that you guys keep making her out to be. She was a gangster. She was a drug dealer. Period. It's foolish sitting here trying to make excuses for what she was doing. You don't want to have the conversation. Listen to the logs. Listen to the logs. Here you go. Let's move on to Jacob Blake. Just a few minutes, but we have enough time before the break. This is the one that I thought that was really interesting with Jacob Blake. Check this out. So you see the pictures, and the thing I don't like about this is most of the pictures that they continue to show you about Jacob Blake is only in the shooting process. No one wants to show you the footage when he was sitting there beating the police officers. No one wants to tell you about the whole idea the fact that he not only was he fighting with them, but he also had a police officer in a chokehold. Do you realize that Jacob Blake was armed with a knife and put one cop in a headlock during the fight with officers before he was shot as police responded to a 911 call from his girlfriend? And this is what kills me, is that they turned around, and now you see this footage, and of course it works perfect. You have the pictures of the 3 white officers, right? You have the 2 white officers, and I guess is that dispatch. You have Jacob Blake sitting next to his kids. You have all these pictures that paint him out to be this sweet little man who would never harm a fly. But come to find out that the guy turned around he sexually assaulted people. Even if you look at the bogus report from factcheck.org, because when you Google now Jacob Blake criminal history, you can't find anything, and the only thing available from you, it's not even an official government document. It's not even official government papers. It's what you got from factcheck.org. So that means that someone just opened up Microsoft Word or Excel and they made it look pretty. It's not an official document. It's not something that you can trust. And a lot of people right now, there's nothing on his criminal history. It says nothing here about him sexually assaulting someone, and it was consent. This is what's being stated now about Jacob Blake. You can't find anything for him. Google is scrubbing this thing, and because of the fact that you can't find anything on Google, everybody's under the impression that he's a great guy. He's a great guy. But he sexually assaulted individuals. He sat there and he was violently there. Why were you there when you're in the residence or you're at the property or location of the person that's your victim that you're being arrested for? There were active warrants out for his arrest. This is some great fatherly figure. This isn't some great giant in the community. This was a bum who turned around and he threatened the safety of his kids because of the fact that he would not comply. Every last one of them who would not comply. The only person I'm going to give you who I would probably say did not deserve to die, and again, we don't have all the story, but from just looking at the video footage, I'm going to give you Philando Castile. I'll give you Philando Castile because he was not in an active, engaged confrontation with the police officer where there was grappling and there was fighting, punching, or even grabbing for a weapon. Rashard Brooks, the guy who was drunk, sleeping in his car, he was basically the police approach him and he moves the vehicle because he was drunk. He was completely coherent until they wanted to arrest him. He was guilty. There was no way around it. He was guilty. And the moment that they tried to start to arrest him, the moment that they tried to detain him, because he rightfully deserved to be basically arrested, he starts fighting with the police officers. He lays haymakers on the police officers. He takes a taser away from the police officer as he's running away. And he tries to deploy the taser on the police officer as he's running away. And he turns back and he starts drawing the weapon and he just points. The fact that he had the nerve to resist, the fact that he had the nerve to actually sit there fight with the police officers, and y'all are sitting there trying to make excuses for him that they didn't have to shoot him because of the fact he only had a taser? Do you want to see that video that's out there that shows a black guy who was being 24 years old, black man, who was pulled over by the police? And everything was perfectly fine until they decided that they wanted to detain him and put cuffs on him, and then he starts fighting with them. They tase him, and he thinks everything's perfectly fine. He gets away, reaches into his car, finds a firearm, and he shoots two police officers. You can't miss it. It's there. But you don't want to listen because of the fact that your anti-cognitive eisegetical syndrome is preventing you from logically reasoning out the facts, the information. We tell you about the violence. We tell you about the propensity of violence for these individuals. You don't care because of the fact that for you, more than anything else, it's about black people being victims. And I'm sorry, when you look at this, Blake is not this great father figure that was lifted up, and he's not the only one I want to be talking about. There are many more who could have survived if all they did was comply. Eric Gardner, last one before we go to break. Even Eric Gardner, as much as I hate the stupid reason that they tried to pull him over and arrest him, all he had to do comply. There never would have been a chokehold if he allowed them to put the cuffs on him, but he didn't want to comply, and he died as a result of his disobedience. You're sitting here, you guys keep making excuses for these individuals, and I'm letting you know it has to come to an end. Stop making excuses for them and allow and truly raise yourself up. We have a little bit more time on this. Raise yourself up. Be people of character. Be people of substance, and stop going. Let me continue with Eric Garner. You watch the video. 3, 4, 5 police officers on his back. It was bogus. There was no reason for it to get that crazy. But think about this. He chose not to comply. He chose to fight back. He chose to be resistant to basic confrontations with the police officer. You remember how black people say that, oh, we have that talk with our teenagers, let them know what to do with the police officer? Obviously, Eric Garner's family did not have that conversation with him because he did not comply, and he lost his life as a result of that. Let's go into a couple of other ones here as we sit here. Oh yeah, I've got some more time for this. But this whole idea of putting out, I mean, the whole idea, let me flip back to Jacob Blake for a second here. The whole idea of painting him out to be this patron saint, it's wrong. It's wrong. But we know, again, when you're brought up in the mentality that your ethnic group or your gender or all these other different things become gods to you, they become these things that you worship. You worship your color, the color of your skin. You worship your gender. You worship all these other different things. It gets in the way of you hearing God clearly. Let's move away from Jacob Blake for a second here. I talked about Eric Garner. Let's talk about the gentle giant. Let's talk about the gentle giant for a second here. This one's really powerful. Michael Brown. Michael Brown turned around and he decided that he wanted to have a confrontation with the police. He didn't want to listen. He wanted to have a fight. And now this man, here's a video, here's pictures of it. You remember him 30 minutes before his encounter with Darren Wilson, he decided he wanted to beat up a store owner and take things away from him. The gentle giant who turned around and he wanted to comply. And from that mentality, he turned around and he decided, as he's in a conflict with a police officer, he was going to attack the police officer. He was going to hurt the police officer. He was going to try and take the police officer's weapon. So he already proved himself to be a violent threat. Folks, what more do you need to know on the nature of this violence? I'll talk more about it when we get back from the break. I'm your host, Watson Prunier. I'll talk to you on the flip side.
I love American Pride roasters in the morning. It really gets me off to work.
AmericanPrideRoasters.com. AmericanPrideRoasters.com.
Why have thousands of aspiring authors teamed up with Christian Faith Publishing to publish their book? Because Christian Faith Publishing is an author-friendly publisher who understands that your labor is more than just a book. We provide authors freedom and flexibility throughout the publishing process, professional book editing, award-winning design, and some of the highest royalty structures in the publishing industry. And as always, you will retain 100% of the rights to your book.
I was looking to find a company that I could trust, one that assisted in the editing process completely.
The most important qualities that I was looking for was a publisher who was honest and upfront, no hidden costs or fees, and owning the rights to my own work.
Christian Faith Publishing will publish, market, and sell your books in all major bookstores, online booksellers, as well as specialty Christian bookstores. Call for your free author submission kit.
800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. That's 800-978-4812.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
Hi, it's Doc Thompson for Matthew 25 Ministries. Matthew 25 Ministries is one of the few charities I'll actually endorse because I know them. I've worked with them, and I know almost all of the money that you donate goes to help people. Go to m25m.org. M25.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Watson Prunier from Battle4Freedom on Mojo 50 Radio. Glad that you could be part of this program and following me. My website, Battle4Freedom.com. From there, share it out with as many people as you possibly can. And let's get into our sponsors before I continue on this whole idea of Ante-Cognitive Eisegetical syndrome, ACEs. It's a mouthful, but trust me, if you flow with me on this, you'll understand exactly where I'm coming from. A lot of people in it who are down south, they were still recovering from Hurricane Laura, and if you have a cat cooler, maybe you can give one to them. And if you don't know what a cat cooler is, check this out. This is very, very cool in terms of what we have with cat coolers. Does it seem like your mind often... That's not the one I wanted to do. Cat coolers is this one. When the world is going to hell in a handbasket, you need rugged. You need strong. You need durable. You need cat coolers. These are the best coolers on the market in 27, 55, and 88 quart. Go to catcoolers.com and give them the code Watson to save 10% on your purchase. Don't settle for those substandard containers that melt, leak, and destroy your memorable moments. Tell them that Watson from Battle4Freedom sent you. Cat coolers. Yes, and not only cat coolers, and we make sure we're going to get this right so that you have the audio. I also want you to know people who are going to be without power, or maybe you do have power wherever you live. You're not down south, but your energy bill has been high, and you want to do this differently. Why not consider Patriot Energy, another one of our sponsors? Are your energy bills getting out of hand and you want to unplug from the grid? Consider Patriot Energy, a local veteran-owned solar company. You need honesty, integrity, and clarity. These markers are essential in the ever-growing solar industry. Call 602-721-6717 for a free quote. Tell them that Watson from Battle4Freedom on Mojo 50 Radio sent you. That number is 602-721-6717. Call Patriot Energy today. Yes, call them today, and hopefully you can figure out a way to overcome your power situations. I'm talking about power here today. As before going to the break, I was talking about the gentle giant, Michael Brown, and how he wasn't so gentle. A lot of people don't want to hear that. A lot of people don't want to anticipate or even recognize that this person who was supposed to be this revered leader in the neighborhood was nothing but a hoodlum who was accosting a store manager who worked hard for what he had and what he was trying to provide to the community. And Michael Brown decided he wanted to take from him. And so his mentality was, I'm going to take. I don't care who you are or what you do. My hood rules. My rules win, and you will comply to my bully mentality. You will comply to my terrorism. You will comply to my tyranny. But many people don't want to hear that. Everyone wants to look at this gentle, quick, cute picture of Michael Brown. But you sit here and you allow these people to continue to just terrorize your communities, not just for whites, for blacks themselves. But unfortunately, you can't see it. A lot of people can't see it because of the fact that it has just been programmed into them and has prevented them from recognizing that they are contributing to their own misery and making life that much more difficult. Lord help us. I want to get into another one that's out here. This is one that was here locally in Indiana about 3-4 months ago. Yeah, Drayzon Reed. This gentleman actually had a live stream, 21 minutes of him basically evading the police, laughing, joking, looked like he was on a whole bunch of different things. But when you show the pictures of him now, when you Google him now, what do you find? These sweet pictures of him in his uniform. He was dishonorably discharged from the military. He was barely in 9 months. Barely in 9 months. And this kid is sitting here videotaping himself, egging the police on. Come get me. Come get me. 9 minutes into his own live stream video, he basically says, I'm going to shoot someone. Y'all not taking me back. I'm not going back to jail. This sweet person and his parents lift him up to be this sweet little angel who would never harm a fly. He would protect people. The same individual who on his Facebook account, which has been since deleted, the information has since been deleted of Drayzon Reed. Where earlier this year, in February, he was sitting there and the gun that people said he didn't have, he actually was shooting at homes and businesses indiscriminately. Drayzon Reed was turning around and he was being a menace to society. You had the video footage. Facebook has since deleted it. Not only that, the videos of him with the gun out there, and not just any gun. He had a magazine. He had this ridiculous magazine. You know how guns imprint on you. He was wearing a jersey where he was barbecuing on the front step, and his jersey was sticking out a whole foot and a half. There were parties where he's sitting there and he's with his gun and he's making his threats as he's drinking liquor. He's drinking alcohol. And he's sitting there and he's playing around with his gun. You're not supposed to be carrying a gun, a loaded weapon, into a bar and drinking. This kid's at a party, many parties drinking. We keep lifting him up as these sweet angels in the community who never should have been shot in the first place. But everybody says, well, he didn't have a gun. Well, when you look at the video, it doesn't look like he has a gun, but he's adjusting himself as he gets out of the car because of the fact that the gun was in his waist belt. It was in his waist belt, and as he was running from the police, and he turns around and he hits the floor, you hear pop, 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 because he pulled the gun from his from his waistband, and he fired back at the police, and the police fired 10 times to put him down. The fact that he chose to fire at the police, the fact that he chose to lead them on a chase, the fact that he stated that he would do this, but the fact that he chose to shoot indiscriminately at homes and businesses earlier this year, all lead up to the mentality that this young man was not an upstanding individual in society. But we keep making excuses because of the fact that regardless if the police officer who killed him would have been corrupt, let's deal with his actions. See, Ante-Cognitive Eisegetical syndrome prevents you from actually realizing and wanting to hear the facts and ask the correct questions. Why were the police there in the first place? Why were the police engaged in the first place? George, with Floyd, and even if it was a fake $20 bill that he had, and he didn't know it was counterfeit. We find out that because he swallowed the fentanyl that he had enough fentanyl in his system that he was dying because of the fentanyl rather than him actually having a knee on his neck. But you know what? They didn't want to show that footage. Keith Ellison should be burning for deceiving American citizens. But he feeds you this narrative that all you want to hear, all you want to process is that black people are targets of law enforcement, and we can't hear anything different. Drayzon Reed decided to fire back, and everybody go, he wasn't firing back. Well, when you sit there and you look at the video footage and you see cartridges ejecting from his gun, you can't see a bullet being fired at you, but you can see cartridges being ejected from the gun as he's firing at police officers, because he's sitting there and he's firing it, and what happens is you see the cartridges ejected above him. You don't see the bullets flying at him because they're flying at the ground. You won't see the bullets unless the police officers hit the phone, and the phone ejected and moved and was displaced. It's the only way that you know that you saw a bullet, and even then, all it is you're just seeing that the phone was fired on. But everybody keeps lifting these people up as martyrs. Comply! But he said he wasn't going to go out like that. And now here it is. There's more information that they're trying to hide. They scrubbed his Facebook presence. They scrubbed his social media presence. Because most of you can't handle the truth. You don't want to listen and think about this. And think about their behavior. Because it's hood life is what we do here. You not recognize as you say that and you ignore the behavior patterns of what they're doing? And you excuse it? We make excuses? This is not good. This is not legitimate. It's a mockery of truth and justice. You want justice. Justice, no peace. You have no peace because of the fact that you have no integrity on confronting the realities that are affecting your communities. Hoodlums, bums, who have no desire, who have no fear of breaking the law or even breaking you. Everybody will sit there. Oh, we got to sit there. We've got to shoot. We've one shot in the back and he's done. I think I said it earlier, but you sit there. It was Jim Caviezel in The Person of Interest, and he sit there and he was an ex CIA, black ops guy who supposedly shoot you once, shoot you in the kneecap, shoot you in the leg, shoot you in the arm, and supposedly you're disabled. No, that's not proper shooting. If you have a license to carry and you think that you're going to be trying to do this James Bond crap, this Mission Impossible crap where you only hit a person in the knee and disable, you've been watching the movies too long. Center mass. That's where you shoot people to make certain. The reason why you are pulling the trigger is because the person, your target, has presented themselves as a credible threat to you and those around you. You're not maiming them. Because if you decide to get all cute and fancy and everything like that and shoot them in the leg and shoot them in the large arm, what if they do? They turn around and they have a gun and they decide to shoot back after that because you thought that they weren't doing anything. And then your little kid or some other individual now becomes a victim because you didn't do your due diligence to put the threat down. They presented them as the fact that you have to draw your weapon, no firing in the air, there's no warning shots. You pull your firearm out, you use your firearm to eliminate the threat. Think of this prancy Hollywood crap about how we deal with violent individuals. De-escalate the situation. Listen, if police are involved, it's way beyond de-escalation because I'm certain that everybody else there tried to de-escalate the situation. And the fact that the police had to be called meant that we needed a little bit more force and strength to basically let the threat, the criminal, know that their behavior is not tolerated nor permitted. We continue to sit here and make excuses. We lift up these people as these paragons of virtue in our community. Shame on you. But then I finally realized Ante-Cognitive Eisegetical syndrome. We're going to get into this. We're going to talk about this. When you look at this here, look at this image here. Quick, which one is the BB gun? Oops, too late. You're dead because of the fact that we drove up next to you and shot you before getting out of your car and doing any real police work to determine if this is a real gun or not. You see that? You have a split second. Police officers have a split second to decide. I have a friend who lost his life, who passed away a few years ago, trying to help somebody, and that person basically a criminal who chose to shoot at my friend, who was a first responder, friend and family member, who was a first responder, was a police officer who was helping someone who was in need. He didn't have time to respond. He didn't have time to respond whether or not this person was pointing a weapon at him or not. He got on all fours, laid down to look into a car to help individuals, and his side was exposed, and he was shot multiple times. Multiple times. There's no time to respond on this. You sit here saying that the police have to de-escalate the situation. They constantly have to work. They want to go home too. I'm tired of this nonsense where we keep talking about the behavior patterns of what the police should be doing in these encounters with criminals, with people who have established pattern of disrespecting the law and the rights of other human citizens. Human citizens. In their dehumanized behavior, they have created themselves to be a threat to society. Y'all keep doing this. Y'all keep, because of systemic racism. You got a split second. Here you go. There it is. 3, 2, 1. Oh, you're already dead. They already shot you. I'm sorry. You're not going home. You are going home. You're going home in a body bag because of the fact that you had a split second to determine whether or not the police officer is going to recognize that you have a real gun or not. I'm so thankful for all the police officers. When I pull up next to them and they have their windows down up and they roll their windows down, I say thank you to them. I thank you for every last one of them because I know I can sense the apprehension. What's going on here? Is this going to be the moment? And it shouldn't have to be like that. It should be able to be a simple gesture of hello, how are you doing? Remove the badge, remove the uniform. It's another human being. Hi, how are you doing? Thank you for what you do. Thank you for serving. Thank you for putting your life on the line. And thank you for trying to protect and serve our community. Can't do that because most police officers, they have to worry about if someone who looks like me is going to do this. We don't have that discussion. We don't want to be honest about that. All we want to do is we want to continue going over these statistics because Don Lemon last week basically said Joe Biden needs to confront the president of the United States of America and let him know that all these people who died, all these black people who died by police officers happened on the watch of Donald J. Trump. Don Lemon, the paragon of truth, and I say that with air quotes. The only person in this list I'm going to give to you is Philando Castile. Philando Castile, I wrestle with what happened in that encounter because he's the only one so far that I have seen that wasn't wrestling and having a fight with the police officers. I mean, even when you look at Walter Scott, who got shot in the back 8, 9, 10 times in South Carolina, he was pulled over. Walter Scott was pulled over, and all he had to do was say, no, dude, I don't have my license. I'm sorry. I don't have any registration. This car's stolen. You just lock me up and take me away. But he ran. The cop police chased him down, got into a confrontation. He took the police officer's taser. Now, y'all keep saying, oh, he shouldn't have shot him in the back. What? This man is proven to be violent enough to attack a police officer, take a police officer's taser, and shoot a police officer with their taser. I know police officers who didn't agree with what happened about him being shot in the back. But I'm sitting here thinking, folks, if that was a gun and he chose to shoot the police officer with his gun, what do you say then? In New York and in other cities, major cities around the world, around the country, this country, in Democrat-controlled cities, you have bums and gang members targeting police officers, shooting police officers in the head sitting in their cars. trying to protect and serve. We don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about that. Why? Because of the fact that if we had to address that, we'd actually have to admit that the position that we've been arguing for so long has been based on lies. Ante-Cognitive Eisegetical syndrome. Let's get in. Well, one more I want to do this on here. But look at all the names. Look at all the names that you have from 2014, 2015. Walter Scott, Freddie Gray, Sandra Bland. You look at these, Philando Castile, Kutcher. Let's look at this next page. You also have, who was it? Lamont Scott, Patrick O'Neill, Alton Sterling, 2016, Christian Taylor, 2015, Tamir Rice, Michael Brown, Eric Garner, all in 2014. These died on Barack Obama's watch. But again, most of you who love sucking on the teat of Don Lemon, you're going to sit here and you're going to be happy that he's presented a lie. You're going to buy it. You're going to regurgitate his ignorance, because that's all you've been functioning in, is willful ignorance. You don't want to function in the reality that, yes, our community is violent and we do a lot of heinous things to one another as well as to people of other colors. Look at the statistics. Look at the reality of what people have done. Look at what these individuals are doing, and the level of trouble that they have caused. The fact that the police were involved or even brought to the scene shows that they already were problematic to so many different levels. Tamir Rice, you only had a gun. Why did Tamir Rice take off of the plastic orange strip off of the gun? Why did he take off of that? Why? Because of the fact that he wanted to be like all the other gangbangers that he sees who bust around with their guns and their crypt and their gang style mentalities. And he thought he was a gangbanger. And he died thinking, because he was a gangbanger. Let's deal with this whole idea of Ante-Cognitive Eisegetical syndrome. Again, this is not cognitive dissonance. This is something completely different. Let's start off with Ante. Let's look at Ante. Ante is prior, earlier, anterior, forward, prior to, earlier than. So we have to understand that as I start this word off of Ante-Cognitive Eisegetical syndrome, we're talking about there's a position, there's a state, there is a direction, and there is a positioning in our mentality that starts prior to something. And what's that prior to? The prior to is cognitive. Cognitive, of relating to being or involving conscious intellectual activities such as thinking, reasoning, or remembering. The second definition is based on or capable of being reduced to empirical, factual knowledge. So when I say ante and I say prior, earlier than being able to be reduced to empirical fact or knowledge, is earlier or prior to thinking, reasoning, or remembering. We have this disposition. We have, and when I take you to the third word, eisegetical, I get it from the word eisegesis. It's basically the interpretation of a text, such as in the Bible, by reading into it one's own idea. The reason why I share this is because of the fact that you see a lot of people who they read something into the Bible. The Bible's sexist. I'll find sexist passages of the Bible, or perceivably sexist passages. I'll find racist passage. I'll find passages that support slavery. You can find anything you want in the Bible if you go into the Bible looking for something. Just like people who turn around and they continue over and over and over again to basically find these racist tendencies in this country. You'll always find racism anywhere and everywhere you look, as long as you're looking to it. So basically, a lot of people, they're always constantly reading this racist narrative into this country. That's eisegeting reality. Because the fact is you want to find the racism, so you create the racism. Yeah, everything is racism. White privilege, white bread, white chalk. Life is so horrific. White light bulbs. It's just so sad because of the fact that instead of having intelligent conversations, people are so hell-bent on proving racism exists that they don't want to think any larger than their limited thinking on what they've perceived to be truth and reality. And it's all been nothing but deception. So you have this beginning, long before you can think, long before you can reason, you have this disposition of you're going to read in your presuppositions. You're going to lay this stuff on it. And of course, when I say syndrome basically is that self-explanatory, a group of signs and symptoms that occur together and characterize a particular abnormality or condition. It's a set of concurrent things such as emotions or actions that usually form an identifiable pattern. So you can see it. When I talk to people about having a black lens and their eyes are darkened because of the fact that everything they see is black, all we're going to see is when black people are hurt. It doesn't matter whether or not other white people. It doesn't matter if statistically speaking or even factually speaking, more white people are killed by cops than black people. It doesn't matter. All we have to do is hear someone say that black people are being targeted and hunted by police officers, and that's all we want to believe. It doesn't matter if the fact, and again, when we sit here and you start clamoring about police brutality and police shooting and killing black people, and we try and have this conversation, it's like, yes, we say, yes, it is a problem when a police officer takes the life of a black person, and it didn't have to happen. If the police is dealing in self-defense, of course, let it happen. You want to be foolish? You want to be dumb? You want to be in an encounter with a firearm? It doesn't matter whether or not a white person. It does not matter whether or not a white person will actually survive an encounter with a police officer with a gun. Because we've proven to you that it does happen, that even whites with guns lose their lives. You can find the videos if you really want to find them. But your predisposition to everything being black fright or black flight will not allow you to reason or reconcile or even respect the reality and truth that there are whites who die at the hands of police as well, even if they do have a gun. You don't want to listen to it. You don't care. You can't process the information. But regardless of whether or not a white person or a black person survives, if you decide that you want to have a weapon and engage with the police officer, there's a video footage I can show you of 2 white cops pulling over a black guy. Everything's perfectly fine until they wanted to handcuff him. Then he starts fighting with them. They tase him. He reaches into his car and he grabs a gun and he shoots them. He shoots the police officers. What else do you need? What else do you need to experience to sit here and stop making excuses for this bad behavior that's causing the lives of black people, and it's because they're choosing to make poor decisions? It doesn't matter if more whites encounter the situation. Why not make decisions that you have less encounters with the police in the first place? These are the questions that we need to have, but even as we try and bring those things up to you, you don't want to hear, because of the fact that all you hear, all you see, all you process is we're victims. And it's rather unfortunate. It's rather disgusting. It's dishonest. It's dishonest to say the least when you sit here and you complain about lives being lost, but you're completely, utterly silent when more lives, 9 to 10 times as many lives lost by police. Oh, no, not 9 times. So police shootings or being shot or killed by a white person happens 3 to 5% of the times, but 95% of the times we see that it's happening. So 19 times higher chance of being killed, not maimed, killed by a black person, 19 times more. Let's see if I can help you understand this. You have $1. $1 has 20 nickels. Take 1 nickel out and put it over here. Then take the other 19 nickels and make a stack of the 19 nickels, and you can put them side by side to see the relationship of what happens when black people are killed by other black people versus being killed by cops or even a white person. That's the reality that you don't want to embrace. It's rather unfortunate because it's dishonest. It's dishonest. And it's not, let's migrate away from that. I want to move something, because that was from the ethnic aspect, but I want to talk about even from the socioeconomic status. How many of you remember Robin Hood? From the Sweet Little Fox and Disney to even the new version that they have. I think it's on Netflix, and even the Russell Crowe version. We don't have to do Robin Hood Men in Tights. That was a little bit on the silly side. But we sit there and we watch Robin Hood. And then what's the premise of it? Here's Robin Hood stealing from the rich to give back to the poor. We're legitimizing stealing. We're legitimizing stealing, where we turn around and we basically say it's not right for this person to have it. So what we're going to do is we're going to create laws, or we're going to create vigilantes. Vigilantes who will turn around and will take away from those people who did not earn it. Now, don't get me wrong. If they were illegal in their means of acquiring the resources that they have and they stole from other individuals, yes, prayerfully justice will mete that out. And sometimes vigilantes are required. But it's amazing how we sit here and we try to make vigilantes a normative, but only when that normative saves or helps me, or only when it benefits me. It's problematic. And when you sit here and we want fair shares, we want equal opportunities. We want not even equal opportunities. We want equal output, equal outcomes as everyone else. And it's like wrong. When you sit here and you're trying to level the playing field, I'm sorry, if you're not working for it, if you don't work for it, you should not be getting it for free. Period. Lord Jesus. I'm your host, Watson Prunier, Battle for Freedom. So thank you for listening. Up next, we have Patriotically Correct. Stay tuned. Enjoy. I'll catch you guys tomorrow. I'm out.